All right, hi everyone. We're looking at our next topic, continuing with the idea of ratios and proportions with our unit rates. And we're also going to use these unit rates to create some conversions, some commonly used ratios that you're going to be doing throughout pretty much the rest of your life, some common ones that we see every day as adults. So we're going to start by looking at unit rates. Now, specifically, a unit rate is in fact a special type of ratio that compares two quantities with different types of units. So in our example there, we have words compared to minutes. Again, words, minutes, two very different kinds of units there. Now, to make that unit rate, when a rate is simplified so that it has a denominator of 1, sorry, it moved a little bit on me, so that it has a denominator of 1, hence the idea of a unit. Okay, so that it has a denominator of 1, this is where we get the unit rate. So for our example, 50 words per 1 minute. So it doesn't necessarily matter what the unit is, but it's the fact that we have one of them signifying one whole unit. Now, one of the biggest places you're going to see unit rates really comes down to the grocery store, where you have those unit costs. Now, a couple of things to find out specific unit rates. So to find unit rates, we have a little three-step process here. First thing is to write the quantities as a ratio, which is why we spent time working on those before. Now, once you have that ratio set up, then we are going to divide both the numerator, so meaning the top, and the denominator, the bottom, by the denominator values. So divide both the numerator and denominator by the denominator. So top and bottom divided by whatever the number is on the bottom. This will create your denominator of 1, and then we write it with unique units for each one of them. So if we look at that same example, 100 words in 2 minutes. So the denominator is my 2, so I'm going to divide both of those numbers by the 2. So the 100 divided by 2 and the denominator divided by the same 2. And then we just simplify it down, do the little bit of math here. So 100 divided by 2 gives me 50. The bottom 2 divided by 2 gives me my 1. So when we put this into its unique units, we have 50 words per 1 minute. And that is our unit rate. So we've got an example here to try out. What is the unit rate if 5 pounds of ground beef cost $35? So we're looking at cost. I'm going to create my ratio here, cost per amount. So again, our goal, how do I know which one to go on top, which one to go on bottom? Well, if I end up putting pounds on top and cost on bottom, I'm going to end up with a very odd numerator, 5 divided by 35. That's not going to give us a nice even whole number that we want. So you can switch the two around. Ratios are not necessarily always going to be in the same thing, but we are comparing a part to part here. So you can flip the order of your parts. If I do cost per amount that I'm buying, I'm looking at 35 divided by my 5 pounds. And that's a little bit easier to do the division. So my denominator that I'll divide by is the 5. So I'm going to divide my 35 by 5, divide the bottom by 5, and let's see what I get. All right, so 35 divided by 5, so $35 divided by 5 pounds means I have $7. 5 divided by 5 means I'm looking at 1 pound. So what is the unit rate for 5 pounds of ground beef that costs $35? That is $7 per pound for my unit rate. Now, using that idea of unit rates, we can create what's called unit conversions, where we convert between different types of units. So unit conversions is the act of converting or changing the given unit of measure to a different measure by use of what's called dimensional analysis. Now, you've used dimensional analysis before. You probably did that last in science class. where you would maybe convert between different measurements, maybe liquids to some kind of liquids, converting between milliliters to liters, or length, maybe feet to inches or feet to centimeters, those kinds of things. But it's a similar idea here. So we've got some steps for this. Step 1, write out the ratio or write out a unit rate. We're going to multiply by what we call a version of 1. We're going to multiply by a version of 1 with the given units in the denominator. So whatever units they give you, it's going to go on the bottom. And the needed units, meaning the units you need to change to, in the numerator or the top. So given on the bottom, needed on the top. And then cancel out any matching units. So let's check out our couple examples here. Example 5, convert 3 hours to minutes. Now, if you have trouble remembering your different conversions, in your Google Classroom, there will be a conversion chart, and I'll show you what that looks like. It will say common conversions, and it's got some of the most common ones we see during the day, dealing with time, capacity, weight, things like that. So there's our customary units here. So if you look at time, 1 hour is the same as 60 minutes. That's down there, down on the bottom, down there in our time thing. 1 hour is 60 minutes. So if you need anything, be sure to check out that conversion chart if you don't know it off the top of your head. So we're going to create our ratio, your unit rate, as you will. So we have 3 hours over 1. There's my unit rate. Now, dimensional analysis usually starts off with the box. Remember, this box just is telling you how to multiply, what you're going to be multiplying by. So we have 3 hours over 1. So there's our unit rate. Now, like it says earlier, multiply by a version of 1 with the given units on the bottom, needed on the top. Well, the given units I have was hours. So I'm going to put hours on the bottom. So 1 hour. Out of 1 hour, that's the same as minutes, because that's what I need. So 60 minutes make up 1 hour. That is my version of 1. That is our version of 1. So we're really just taking our initial ratio, 3 to 1, and multiplying by 1 whole, but we're changing the way we visually see 1 whole, hence 60 minutes over 1 hour. Now we just need to see, what does all this loveliness look like? So we multiply straight across. 3 times 60 is 180. 1 times 1, still just a 1. Now let's see what step 3 says about our units. So the third step there, cancel out any matching units. So in this case, hour and hour cancels out. The only unit that we have left is a minute, is the minute. So we are looking at 180 minutes in 3 hours. So now, using that same idea, sometimes we need to convert between multiple units here, multiple conversions. So when we look at our next one, convert 696,960 inches, very small, to miles, something very big. So if we go back and check out that conversions page, we do not have a conversion that specifically goes from inches to miles. But I do have something that takes inches to feet, such as the one on the very bottom, and then I have feet to miles. So I'm going to have to do 2 multiplies here. I need to convert to each level. So we're going to start off by creating our unit rate. So we've got 6,000, sorry, a little too big there. We have 696,960 inches over 1. There's my unit rate. Now I need to see what I need to multiply this by. Now, Again, given units go on the bottom. So that means inches is on the bottom. And I don't have one that goes directly to miles, but I do have something that can convert to feet. So we kind of make a chain reaction here. All right, so for 1 foot, there are 12 inches. Now I can take this same conversion, do it one more time. So I'm going to imagine that that very first one is not there. Essentially, I'm going to cover it up. Pretend that first one isn't there, and now we'll convert feet to miles. So I'm going to do this one more time. With given on bottom, in this case feet, what I need on top, which is miles. Now, how many feet are in 1 mile? That was 5,280 off of that conversion sheet. So now I can see everything. If I zoom back over here, I can see everything that I need to multiply here. 696,960 times 1 times 1, all over 1 times 12 times 5,280. Now, this is a lovely thing that I would recommend you try to use your Desmos calculator for. If you are able to get the TI Inspired for, maybe try to use that. So that way you can put it all in at one time. So I'm going to open up my calculator here. There it is. I'm using the scientific one. All right. So I'm going to use my fraction template, which is over on the right underneath that screwdriver. And in the numerator, we had 6,960 and 960. So there's our final number, times multiplied by 1 and times 1. I'm going to go down to my bottom box here and put in the rest of that, which was a 1 times 12 times 5,280. And enter, and I'm roughly at 10.98 or roughly 11 miles. So I'm going to go back to my answer. And it is approximately 11 miles. And there is my final. Now, our last one, sometimes you may not need to go to multiple, make a little chain there and do multiple conversions. Sometimes you may be able to do one. Now we're looking at inches to centimeters. So I'm going to check my conversion, see if I have one that directly goes from inches to centimeters. And I do. It's this very first one. There's 1 inch for every 2.54 centimeters. So I'm going to use that conversion. All right. So now we're looking at 7 inches over 1. We'll do our multiplying here. Again, you're given units on the bottom, what we need on top. So there are 2.54 centimeters for 1 inch. Now we can just do our multiplication. 7 multiplied by 2.54, round to the nearest hundredth, but I think we get exactly 17.78 centimeters. And there is our final. All right, guys, I hope you learned something about unit rates and using the unit rates to do conversions. Please take some time and check out your assignment. And guys, I hope you have a great rest of the week. Bye, guys.